Welcome to The Art of Us as we bridge the gender divide series, episode 1.
Hello. Great to be diving in.
Yeah, this deep dive is into a really fascinating theory from the book The Art of Us, Bridging the Gender Divide by Xavier Ezra Borrero.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find that book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, the usual places.
Yeah, it's definitely a unique perspective we're diving into today. We're really looking at gender and creation through a lens you might not have encountered before.
Exactly. And just to set the stage, this deep dive, it isn't about, politics or the usual culture war stuff.
Not at all. We're focusing on chapter 1 of Xavier Ezra Borrero's book. It's offering a really different read on some ancient texts, looking at what they might suggest about our, original design.
Like a blueprint.
Kind of like a blueprint, yeah.
So our mission here is basically to get our heads around these core ideas. The Androgynous Atom Theory, as Xavier Ezra Borrero calls it, and what it suggests about how maybe, just maybe, we were originally designed.
It's a fascinating starting point. Could be a bit disruptive to some traditional views, perhaps.
Definitely. So let's jump in. Right at the start, Xavier Ezra Borrero throws out an idea that, as he puts it, might mess with your traditional Bible study group.
He does, yeah. It's provocative.
The idea is this. The very first human maybe wasn't created strictly male or female initially.
Right, but actually held both aspects, both energies, you could say, within one single being.
Okay, hold on. How does that work? Where does that come from?
Well, this perspective really digs into a close reading of Genesis chapter 1. It highlights the word Adam, which, in the original Hebrew is Adam.
Uh-huh.
And in this initial creation account, the argument is that Adam isn't used like a personal name like Bob or Sue.
Right.
It's used more as a general term, meaning human being or like humanity collectively.
Okay, I think I follow. So Adam means humankind.
That's the reading presented.
Yeah.
And then you look at the specific wording in Genesis chapter 1, verse 27.
Okay, what does it say?
It says, male and female, he created them. And then it continues, and he called them Adam.
Them is the key word there.
Exactly. It's plural them, which indicates, both male and female aspects or qualities are present somehow.
But then it says, he called them, plural, Adam, singular.
Right. That's the puzzle piece. Plural creation, singular name. So this view suggests that the original Adam, this first human entity, actually contained both masculine and feminine principles, both energies, right there in one form.
Wow, okay. So not two separate people created right at the start, but one being holding a duality.
That's the idea. Like the whole spectrum was right there at the origin point. Unity first.
Okay, so if that's the starting point, this fused, unified being, how do we get to, us?
Yeah.
The separation we see now?
Good question. That's where the book transitions us over to Genesis chapter 2. And things seem to shift quite dramatically there.
Right. Chapter 2 feels different. That's where we get the, it is not good for man to be alone line, isn't it?
That's the one. Now, traditionally, we read alone as, solitary, by himself, lonely.
Yeah, he needs a partner.
But Xavier Ezra Borrero offers this alternative reading. It puts a whole different spin on why the separation happened next.
An alternative reading of alone. What is it?
The suggestion is that alone could also be interpreted, or maybe even better translated as all one.
All one, as in unified.
Exactly. So if you read it that way, it is not good for man to be all one.
Okay, wait. So it's not bad to be solitary, but it's maybe not ideal to stay completely unified internally.
That's the implication presented, that maybe holding both those, intense masculine and feminine energies internally forever without an external dynamic or relationship wasn't the best setup for flourishing, for growth.
Huh. So it wasn't a flaw in the original Adam, but maybe a limitation in staying only in that state.
Sort of, like potential that needed expression, maybe? It reframes the separation that follows in Genesis 2.22, where God takes the feminine aspect from the masculine.
Right, the rib story, essentially.
Yeah, but the focus here isn't on the rib itself, but the act of separation. And crucially, this book presents it not as creating a lesser or subordinate part from the main one.
Which is often how it's interpreted.
It is, but here it's seen as an act of, balancing. Taking one fundamental aspect out of that original whole to create two distinct parts.
Two parts, masculine and feminine, now in separate forms.
Exactly, but intrinsically linked because they came from the same unified source. And now they're designed, ideally, to work together, in harmony, reflecting that original internal unity, but now externally, relationally.
Okay, that makes sense as a model. But the theory also suggests we forgot this.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. This idea of a kind of collective spiritual amnesia.
Amnesia about our origins.
The thought is, once separated into these distinct forms, we started identifying so strongly with our part, I am the masculine form, I am the feminine form, that we lost sight of the unified source.
We forgot the original state was fusion, maybe.
Potentially. We focused on the division, not the shared origin or the intended harmony.
Okay, this is getting really interesting. And I know Xavier Ezra Borrero connects this to Jesus' words too, right? In Matthew.
He does, yeah. It's a really compelling part of the argument, Matthew chapter 19. He says, verse 4 and 5, "Haven't you read that at the beginning the Creator made them male and female?"
There's that word again, them.
Exactly, made them male and female.
Now, if Jesus was just thinking about, God making Adam, then making Eve as two separate events or people right from the get-go, why use them? Why not say he made a male and a female, or he made Adam and then Eve?
That's the question raised. This perspective argues Jesus is deliberately, specifically referencing Genesis 1.27, that account of the single original creation that held both aspects within it.
So he's pointing to the original design before he even talks about marriage between two separate people.
That's the interpretation. He establishes the foundational blueprint first, and then he continues, right after saying, "made them male and female."
And for this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh.
Right, and we usually focus on the physical union there.
Sure, becoming one flesh.
But this theory suggests it's deeper than that. It's not just physical. It's framed as a direct callback to that original unity in Genesis 1.
So the joining in marriage, it's like a way back, a restoration.
A potential path towards restoring that original integrated state, the state that was separated in Genesis 2. It's like two distinct parts learning to operate as one again, mirroring the beginning.
Wow. Okay. Mind blown a little bit there.
It's a powerful reframing.
And, before we move on, if this perspective is resonating with you or even just making you think, definitely check out the book we're discussing. Book, The Art of Us, Bridging the Gender Divide by Xavier Ezra Borrero. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and you can find more at elevatepublishingco.com. It really unpacks these ideas.
Absolutely. It goes much deeper than we can in this brief dive.
So, okay, we have this textual, maybe spiritual blueprint.
Yeah.
Original unity, separation for balance, Jesus pointing back to unity. Does this connect to the physical world at all? To us, biologically?
Well, Xavier Ezra Borrero suggests it does. The idea presented is that maybe our bodies themselves, kind of. Remember, they hold echoes of this original design.
Our bodies remember. How?
It's this concept that the physical structure, our biology, might act as a sort of witness, a physical reminder of that initial spiritual state, that integrated duality.
Okay, that's intriguing. Is there a specific example?
Yeah, the book points to chromosomes, specifically that men carry both an X and a Y chromosome.
Right, XY for male, XX for female. Basic biology.
Basic biology, yes. But the book presents this not just as a biological fact, but as a potential biological confirmation, like a receipt, almost.
A receipt.
Yeah, like it's hardwired into the physical being, testifying that the design involved holding both aspects internally from the start. Like biology is whispering that secret of the original blueprint.
Huh. An echo in the flesh. I like that.
And this idea of synergy, of holding different aspects in unity, isn't just limited to humans in this view. It extends outwards, even to the divine.
So not just human design, but God's nature too.
Exactly. The book suggests that God himself operates in a way that reflects this principle of synergy and integration.
How so?
Well, the Trinity is presented as a prime example. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, distinct yet completely unified.
3 in 1.
3 in 1. Working together in, perfect synergy. This isn't just abstract theology in this context. It's seen as the divine pattern.
A pattern of unity within multiplicity.
Right. Balanced relationship. And that divine pattern is then mirrored, or is meant to be mirrored, in the human design, that potential for internal unity and balance, micro reflecting the macro.
Okay. This paints a picture of, inherent harmony. Original unity, divine synergy, biological echoes. It sounds quite beautiful, actually.
It does.
So, why is this often so difficult? Why do discussions around, say, integrating masculine and feminine energies or even gender fluidity sometimes trigger such intense reactions, discomfort, resistance?
That's a really important question, and the book tackles it directly. It suggests the discomfort.
Yeah.
It might not always be purely about theology.
Not theology. Then what?
It might be something more personal, more psychological, perhaps.
Personal, like how?
Well, the idea proposed is that challenging fixed categories, especially really established ones like masculine and feminine roles, identities, expectations, can feel threatening.
Threading out.
It can feel like a challenge to someone's sense of control, their personal definition. For some people, those clear boxes provide order, predictability, a solid sense of this is who I am, this is who you are.
Right. Clear lines.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when those lines get blurred or questioned or seen as maybe more fluid than solid, it can feel like losing boundaries. And that can trigger insecurity, a feeling of being unsettled, maybe even a bit lost.
So the strong reactions, the panic sometimes. You're saying the book suggests it might stem less from a deep theological conviction and more from that personal unease when the established norms get shaky.
That's the perspective offered, yeah. That the intensity of the reaction might signal an internal struggle with insecurity or a need for those clear, controllable boundaries, maybe a discomfort with complexity, rather than just a reasoned disagreement about interpretation.
The difference between a position and a reaction.
Something like that. Food for thought, anyway.
Definitely. And that leads us right into the practical side. For you listening, if this original state was unity, if the goal is maybe restoration or integration, what does that mean for us now?
It really shifts the focus, doesn't it? The goal, according to this perspective, isn't necessarily about, frantically searching for your other half out there to complete you.
Or just trying really hard to fit into specific gender roles.
Right. Or, as the book kind of playfully calls it, just doing gender cosplay, performing a role.
Cosplay? Huh? Okay. So if it's not that, what is it?
It's more about the internal work, the spiritual, personal journey.
Internal.
Yeah. Activating, acknowledging, and then integrating the masculine and feminine parts, the energies, the qualities that this theory says are already inside you as part of that original Genesis 1 design.
So the parts are already there. We just need to wake them up, balance them.
That's the core idea. The journey is about recognizing and harmonizing the whole of who you were created to be. Not just identifying with one slice of it, becoming whole from the inside out.
And that's where the title comes in, The Art of Use, USS meaning us, you and me.
Exactly. That us, humanity, was designed with this inherent balance from the start.
That really changes things. It implies you don't necessarily need something external to be complete.
It does. It puts the power and the responsibility back inside. By focusing on that internal integration, balancing your mind, body, spirit, your inherent masculine and feminine qualities, your power and your presence.
That's where wholeness starts.
That's what the book posits, yes. That's where the healing is. Stepping back into that original integrated design.
It's powerful. It feels less like gender politics and more like, getting back to Genesis, like you said, the blueprint.
Before all the arguments, before the divisions, maybe there was just purpose, balance.
And remembering that is how we become whole again.
That's the suggestion. Remembering you weren't made in pieces. You were made in balance by a creator, intentionally.
Not to divide yourself into boxes.
But to integrate every part of you that reflects the divine design. Mind, body, spirit, masculine, feminine, power, presence, all of it.
Designed to operate in unity, holding both fire and water, as the book might say, without getting burned or drowning.
Yeah, because maybe holiness isn't about pretending perfection. Maybe it's about becoming whole.
And building that balance inside, it changes everything. Your identity, relationships, purpose. It's not just fixing problems. It's reclaiming your design.
It's not politics. It's not rebellion. It's Genesis. And maybe if we remembered where we started, we wouldn't fight so much over things that maybe never needed splitting.
Oh, yeah. This androgynous atom theory, it's more than just a concept, isn't it?
It feels like a call to remember who you are and who you were always meant to be.
So a final thought for you to chew on, based on all this.
If becoming whole really is about integrating all these parts, the masculine, the feminine, everything you were designed with, how might remembering that original balance actually change things for you?
Yeah, how might it shift how you see yourself or your relationships or even just your fundamental purpose in the world?
It's definitely a question worth sitting with.
Absolutely. And if you want to explore these ideas further, really dive into the details and the nuances, please check out the book, The Art of Us, Bridging the Gender Divide by Xavier Ezra Borrero.
It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and you can also visit elevatepublishingco.com for more information.
It's been a fascinating discussion. In a world that often feels divided, let's keep building a community grounded in unity and understanding and try to lead by example. And a thank you all for listening to The Art of Us, Bridging the Gender Divide. Until next time.